Hi all, Intermediate Vim here. I wanted to take a few minutes today and talk through an advanced Vim problem that I found in my workflow in the last couple of days that I've been chewing on and I think some people might be able to learn from. So the first thing that I want to do, maybe unconventionally, is show you the solution. So perhaps paradoxically to the title of this video, the solution was to use sed and not to use Vim. So why do I call this an advanced Vim video? First, it's a little bit clickbaity, for one, so maybe more people will watch it. But secondarily, I think the only advanced concept here is to understand what the tools are that you have and what they're kind of good for and what they're not. And as you increase in maturity and your use of your editors and your other tools, that is really a kind of a show point, and it may be the only advanced thing that I would say that I do with Vim, which is to say, well, Vim is like a really good pocket knife, and there are a lot of problems you can solve with a good pocket knife, but there are some things you can't solve with that pocket knife, or rather maybe that you shouldn't. So I think this is germane to some discussion that's been going on, people that proselytize for Vim or something like that, or try to make it something it's not. So really what we're trying to avoid is this situation, right, where, yeah, you can use plugins and you can use whatever other integration tools and make Vim kind of as heavy-duty and fancy as you want, but really what you're using it for most of the time is as a good pocket knife. And it pays to just know how to use all the tools in your Swiss Army knife and know when to use which ones. So what is really the problem here that I'm trying to resolve? Well, there is, in my workflow, a set of kind of fundamental code that I use across a lot of projects, a lot of submodules, and one of my customers requires the use of headers and footers that say that this is an unclassified file and kind of that you can distribute it. So for this one project, I have these headers and footers that are constantly interfering with my Git workflow, and I really would just like to remove them. So how do you go about doing that, and why is this an interesting problem? Well, if you go consult the internet, Stack Overflow, what have you, there's this really kind of like, I don't want to call it stupid, but maybe overly simplified answer that everybody has. And that's, well, if you've got a standard header and you know that it's 14 lines here, then why don't you just, fire this thing up and from the first line to the 14th line, just delete, and then you're done. Well, that works as long as A, you have a thing in there that you want to delete, and B, that, this thing isn't, actually accidentally some extra number of line here where somebody wrote something silly. Come on, definition is here, right? And now I have a slightly larger header that I need to take out, and I want to have this to be general use for any project. If anybody puts a header or footer, I want to be able to easily strip them off and have this problem solved. So the first thing that I did, obviously, is I fired up Vim and said, oh, I can do this. This looks to me like a macro problem, and so I started writing macros. So I'm not going to turn on screen key yet. It kind of gets in the way, and I just want to sort of show my thought process here and then show you ways to make it a little bit better and how I got to the end product and then why I decided to use a different tool at the end of the day. So what I decided to do was, well, what I could probably manage is just search for the first line of this file that I actually want and then delete everything above it. Likewise, search from the bottom to the last thing I want and then delete that stuff. So how do you do that easily in Vim? So let's start by recording a macro queue. And I'll say, start by searching for a line that starts with class def in this case. And you jump right there. I can go up a line and then DGG to delete to the top of the file. So then I have that kind of done. But that's a little bit not robust, right? Because MATLAB is really, well, it's not the best language for a lot of reasons, but it's also kind of like a lot of languages wearing a trench coat. In that when I'm writing MATLAB code, I can write it procedurally or I can write it in an object-oriented way. So I can have either the start of my file be a class definition or a function or something else. So I tweaked this macro a little bit to say search for, first, at the beginning of the line, I want the word class def or I want the word function. So I know I'm still recording a macro, but just to show you that this works, if I press N, I go to a function. If I press capital N, I go back to class def, and I skip over that thing on line 2 that says class definition because A, it doesn't start the line, but B, it's not a whole word. It's not a word match for class def. So, and then I would go up a line and delete to the top of the file, DGG, and then I'm done. So I would press Q. But you'll notice if I go ahead and from the Q register, from the Q register paste, I got a bunch of stuff in here I didn't actually need. So if you're not editing your macros, here's an easy way to do that. Just paste it out of the register, and then we can search that out. So there's class derf. No, we just wanted class def function. We pressed enter. I don't need to search around. I go up one line and delete to the top of the file. Okay, so let's, with :q dd, yank that into the Q register, undo a few times. So I get that header back, go to the top of the file, and then I will do @q, and I see that it did exactly what I want. So if I undo that and save, I can also go down to the end of the file now. Well, rather, let's make that part of the macro. So if I do Q, capital Q, then I can go to the bottom of the file. I can search backwards for a line that begins with the word end, jump to it, go down one, and then D capital G to delete to the end of the file, and then Q. So if I've done this right, let's from Q paste, and you'll now see I search for the class of our function, I press enter, I delete the top, then I go to the bottom, I search up for end, I press enter, and then I go down one line and delete to the bottom. Okay, so if I undo those, so I have the footer now, and I have the header, and I do @q, you see my header and my footer are now gone. So that's exactly what I want, and I have a pretty good macro. So what do I do from here? Well, first, I realized that, well, if I didn't have these things, then something weird is about to happen. If I just run @q again, you see now that end is still there. Well, rather, it's a different end, and that class def bit at the top is gone. And that's because of the fact that there's not a way to occupy the 0 line for Vim in this case. So saying I undid this just to kind of demonstrate. If I said delete from line 0 to, I don't know, let's try to delete the line that's above the first one. So let's search, the beginning of the line starts with a %. Yes. No. Is there a better way to do this? Can I just do 0? Let's just try this. 0D. Oh, look, it deleted the first line of the file. Well, shoot. So that means there's not a way around this. I'm going to delete something at the beginning of the file no matter what I do. But let's just say that there's only a very small number of places where I might run into this problem and I don't care. So the next thing that I would do then is I would just say args all the m files now go into the argument list, and then I just want to show you what happens. So I can then do arg do normal @q. Normally I would run this silently, but I want you to watch it chug. So I say, oh, cool, it's triggering a different file here. But you see how slow this is? This might be fine if you only had 10 files, but I have thousands of files in here. So I really don't want to do it this way. And this was my indicator of a smell that, there must be a better way to do it. Oh, QJ. So if I quit Vim here, I'll show you the better answer. Okay, good. So I didn't actually save any of those things. Usually you'd, add an update at the end, or you could also pipe in write or something like that. But a much better way would be to use a custom script I wrote / what do I call that? MATLAB footer.sed, and I would say star.m. Boom. And that just did all of them all at once. So there's no reason now that I would need to, go through and solve this in Vim when I can do it in, like I think I showed, literally one line of sed here. So this is a little bit cryptic. If you're any good at regular expressions in Vim, then this should come fairly easy to you. I do recommend, however, that you watch this playlist, which is put out by Nixcast, I believe, for how to use sed, what it is and what it does. Extremely cool. I had no idea how much sed can do. It's worth investigating. But for problems that you want to reuse, yeah, you can save a function or a macro, but if you got to do this over a lot of files, it's just not really a tenable solution. So that's all I really wanted to say about this header and footer removal. Hopefully some people found this useful. Hopefully I tweaked or piqued some people's interest in going and learning some sed. But at any rate, we'll see you all next time. Thanks for watching.